Overheard my wife planning to cheat on me with her best friend's help while I was working overtime. So I quietly moved all our savings and filed for divorce while she was out cheating on me. I caught my wife planning to cheat on me, with her best friend coaching her through it, while I was out grinding away at overtime shifts. Instead of blowing up right then and there, I played it cool. Quietly, I moved every dime of our savings into my own account and filed for divorce while she was out messing around behind my back. Hey Reddit. Honestly, I never thought I'd end up typing one of these posts, but life's got a messed up sense of humor sometimes. Let me back up a little and give you some context, because details matter and, well, I know you guys like a good backstory. I'm 34, male, and I work in industrial equipment sales. Think conveyor belts, packaging machines, basically the behind-the-scenes stuff that keeps warehouses and factories humming along. Doesn't sound glamorous, but it pays the bills. I've been at this company for about 8 years, started at the bottom in inside sales, and now I'm a regional manager. Worked my tail off to get here. My wife, Sarah, 31, she's a part-time yoga instructor and does some freelance graphic design whenever she feels like it. We've been married 3 years, together for 6. We met at a brewery trivia night. Funny enough, her team beat mine because I'm apparently terrible at pop culture trivia from the 2000s. Who knew? Now, before you think I was stupid with money, I'll just say we did have a prenup. I'd watched too many guys at my company get absolutely gutted in divorces, losing everything, and I wasn't about to let that happen to me. I brought it up early, and Sarah actually didn't make a fuss about it. She said she understood wanting to protect what each of us had going in. I thought, hey, that's pretty reasonable. Things started to shift a few months back. Sarah drives a 2019, and the transmission's been giving her problems. Not a total breakdown, but enough little hiccups that make you wonder if today's the day you're calling an Uber to get to work. She'd been hinting here and there about wanting something newer and more reliable. Fair enough. I drive a company truck, so I don't deal with that daily stress. Then about 2 months ago, she got specific. Started showing me listings for certified pre-owned Subaru Outbacks. Nothing too flashy, around 28 grand. Not exactly pocket change. Problem was, we didn't have that kind of money on hand. Most of our cash had been going straight into aggressively paying off my student loans and hammering away at the mortgage. But you know what? I figured she deserved something dependable. She'd been patient with me when it came to putting financial goals first, so I thought I'd step up for her. I told myself I could pick up extra hours and make it happen. So I started saying yes to every overtime shift I could get. Weekends, late calls, covering for coworkers on vacation, you name it, I took it. The industrial equipment world doesn't really sleep. When a packaging line at a food plant goes down, every minute costs them thousands. So guess who gets the call? Guys like me. For about 2 months, I was clocking 65, sometimes 70 hours a week, funneling every extra dollar into what I called the car fund. Sarah acted understanding about the long hours. Told me she appreciated me busting my back for her. Her best friend Jenna started hanging around more, keeping her company when I wasn't home. I thought it was nice, honestly. Jenna's divorced, works for some healthcare startup, and always struck me as pretty chill. They'd have their wine nights, binge some shows, normal stuff, or so I thought. Meanwhile, I was out troubleshooting busted barcode scanners and jammed conveyors. Then came the plot twist. Last Tuesday, I got lucky on a service call. What was supposed to be a 3-hour emergency job turned into a quick 20-minute fix. A sensor just needed cleaning. So instead of rolling in around 10 p.m., like usual, I got home by about 7:30. I walked in, heard voices coming from the kitchen, Sarah and Jenna. Sounded like a casual chat, so I figured I'd sneak a beer out of the fridge before surprising them. That's when I caught Jenna saying something about timing, and Sarah replying that she needed to be careful about when she made her move. At first, I brushed it off. Thought maybe they were talking about a work project or planning some surprise for somebody's birthday. But then Sarah started talking about how, with me working so many extra hours, maybe this was the perfect chance to see what else was out there. Jenna agreed. Said Sarah had been mulling this over for weeks, and it was time to stop overthinking it. She told Sarah she deserved to explore her options and find something better suited for her. And Jenna didn't stop there. She even offered to help with the logistics. Said she had some connections that could make the whole thing easier. I remember standing there thinking, man, that's some strange language for whatever project they're supposedly working on. Then Sarah said the line that made my stomach drop. She admitted she was nervous about the financial fallout, but Jenna reassured her. Said she could always come back to her current situation if the new thing didn't work out. That I'd probably take her back anyway because, in her words, I was too nice for my own good. That's when the penny dropped. I knew exactly what I was overhearing. This wasn't about a birthday or some project. This was about Sarah planning to cheat on me, with Jenna playing her wingman, and my marriage being treated like some kind of safety net. I set my beer down as quietly as I could, walked back out to my truck, and just sat there. 10 minutes, maybe more, trying to wrap my head around what I'd heard. Then I drove around for about an hour before coming back home and pretending nothing had happened. Sarah asked how my day was. I told her fine. We went to bed like it was any other night. But the next few days, they felt surreal. Sarah started dropping hints about needing space, saying she felt like she'd been stuck in the same routine too long. Asked me if I thought two people could love each other but still need to explore other connections. Real subtle, right? By Friday, she finally had the big talk. Told me she'd been thinking and felt like we got married young. I was 28, she was 31, and maybe she needed time and space to figure out if this was really what she wanted. Said she loved me but wasn't sure she was still in love with me. All the classics from the I Want to Cheat but Make It Sound Noble playlist. She floated the idea of crashing at Jenna's place for a few weeks to get perspective and really think about what she wanted. Said that if we were truly meant to be, we'd find our way back to each other. I looked her straight in the eye and asked if there was someone else. She swore up and down there wasn't. Said she'd never do that to me, that she just needed to figure herself out. Jenna had told Sarah she could stay with her for a while, and even floated the idea of them taking a little trip together to clear her head. So I just nodded and said okay. If that's what she thought she needed, fine. I wasn't going to stop her. On the surface, I played the supportive husband role. I told her I'd keep working, keep saving, and give her whatever space she needed to figure things out. What I didn't mention was that I'd already called a divorce attorney that Thursday morning. By Sunday, Sarah packed up and left. She didn't take much, just her clothes, her laptop, a stack of books. The kind of stuff you'd grab if you thought you were going on a little break instead of a permanent move. At the door, she hugged me, told me she hoped we could work things out, and said this wasn't necessarily the end, just a pause. Said she just needed some clarity. Monday morning, I drove straight to the bank. I moved every bit of our savings, including the 12 grand I'd been stashing away for that car she wanted, into a brand new account in only my name. Thanks to the prenup, I was well within my rights. Her name wasn't tied to my work accounts anyway. I even left our joint checking account untouched, aside from pulling my direct deposit out of it. Tuesday, I had the divorce papers drawn up. Nothing nasty or drawn out, just a straightforward dissolution citing irreconcilable differences. With the prenup, it was clean. She'd keep what she brought in, I'd keep what I brought in, and if we sold the house, we'd split the proceeds. No alimony, no financial bloodbath. By Wednesday, Sarah texted me asking if I'd been thinking about us and if I was finally ready to have a real conversation about working on our relationship. I told her I'd been doing a lot of thinking, and yeah, I was ready for a serious conversation. Asked if she could come by Thursday evening. She seemed almost relieved, maybe even excited. Said she'd been doing some reflecting too and wanted to talk about our future. Thursday night, she showed up with takeout in hand, smiling nervously. She launched into this speech about how being away had made her realize how much she missed our life together. Said maybe she'd been overthinking, and sometimes you need to step away to appreciate what you already have. That's when I slid the divorce papers across the table. I'll never forget the way her face shifted. First she looked shocked, then confused, then furious, all in about 15 seconds. She demanded to know what this was supposed to mean. Asked if it was some sort of joke. Accused me of being dramatic just because she'd needed a little space. I told her I understood exactly what kind of space she was after, and that I decided to give her more space than she'd ever imagined, permanently. She pressed me, demanded I explain. So I told her. I admitted I'd overheard her and Jenna's little strategy session the previous Tuesday. Not every word, because I didn't stick around for the full blueprint, but enough to know she was gearing up to cheat, and that she thought I'd be waiting here like some loyal golden retriever once she was done testing the waters. The look on her face said it all. She tried scrambling, said I must have misunderstood, taken things out of context. Swore she hadn't actually done anything yet. I told her that was great news, because it meant our divorce would be even cleaner. No adultery claims, just two people going their separate ways. Then her tone shifted. She asked about money. Wanted to know if she could access the savings account to get her own place. Maybe buy a car since she'd be starting over. That's when I told her flat out. The savings account was closed. I explained that the money I'd killed myself earning through overtime wasn't going to fund her little journey of self-discovery. That 12 grand was in an account she'd never touch. That's when she blew up. Accused me of being controlling, said cutting her off financially was abuse. I reminded her of two facts. 1, the prenup gave me sole ownership of the money I earned. And 2, she'd never put a dime into that so-called car fund anyway. That money came from my sweat and long nights, not hers. She stormed out around 9, still clutching the takeout she'd brought. Didn't even eat it. Now here's the part where I started second-guessing myself a little. I kept thinking, Should I have confronted her right after I overheard that conversation, given her a chance to explain herself, or maybe back out of it? Was I too quick to jump to conclusions? Maybe she really was just having some kind of quarter-life crisis that had nothing to do with another man. But the more I sit with it, the more sure I am of what I heard. I'm not out here trying to ruin her life. She's got a job. She's got Jenna. She's got a roof over her head. She's a grown adult. She can figure out her own car and her own apartment. I just don't see why I should bankroll her self-discovery phase, especially when it clearly involved testing out someone else's bed. Still, I'll admit, a small part of me wonders if I was too harsh. Maybe I should have tried harder to fix things. What do you think, Reddit? I've got some decisions to make about what comes next. Update 1, a few days later. Well, Reddit, you sure had plenty to say. My inbox blew up like a conveyor line at peak Christmas rush. And the overwhelming consensus? That I wasn't the bad guy here. That I needed to stop doubting what I heard and stick to my guns. A lot of you pointed out something that really hit me. When I handed Sarah those divorce papers, her first reaction wasn't confusion or heartbreak. It was money. If she'd truly been innocent, she'd have been devastated. Instead, she was calculating. Some folks suggested I start gathering more evidence, just in case. But honestly, I'm not interested in turning into some private investigator. I don't want to follow her around with a camera or comb through her phone records. I know what I heard, and her reaction already confirmed it. And here's the kicker. Some of you warned me that Sarah would probably try to come crawling back with tears and promises once it hit her that I was serious. Well, looks like Reddit called it. Because Friday morning, the very next day after I served her, I woke up to the sound of someone pounding on my front door at 6:30 in the morning. She wanted to talk. For real this time. No games. No half-truths. Just talk. When she came by, she admitted that, yeah, she had been thinking about other options. But she swore that seeing the divorce papers slapped her into reality. Said she wasn't actually interested in anyone else, just scared of commitment. Told me I was the best thing that ever happened to her, and that she'd been a complete idiot. I told her I appreciated the honesty, but that ship had already sailed. If she'd wanted to work on our marriage, she could have done that before she started planning an affair with Jenna's help. That's when she shifted gears and tried to blame Jenna. Claimed Jenna had been putting ideas in her head, saying she'd settled too quickly, that she should see what else was out there. According to her, Jenna was bitter about her own divorce and was just projecting onto Sarah's marriage. Sarah swore she never would have actually gone through with anything if I hadn't jumped straight to divorce. So I asked her point blank, was there a specific guy she had in mind, or was she just window shopping? She went quiet for a long while before finally admitting there was a guy from her yoga studio. Said he'd been flirting with her for months, and though nothing had actually happened, she'd been curious about what it might be like. Jenna had been egging her on, telling her life was short and she shouldn't live with what-ifs. And there it was. It wasn't just some vague fantasy. She had a target in mind. I thanked her for finally being honest, but told her it didn't change anything. She broke down crying then, begging me to try counseling, to at least give us a chance to work through it. Said it was crazy to throw away 6 years like this. But you know what stuck with me, Reddit? Something a lot of you pointed out. She wasn't actually sorry for plotting to cheat. She was only sorry she got caught. If I hadn't overheard that kitchen conversation, she would have gone ahead with it and expected me to sit here patiently until she was done exploring her options. I told her I'd think about it, mostly just to get her out of the house so I could get on with my day. But the truth is, my mind was already made up. Later that weekend, another situation came up. Sarah tried to dip into our joint checking account, only to find out I'd switched my direct deposit. She called me Saturday morning, upset, asking why. I told her plain and simple, since we were divorcing, it made sense to split our finances completely. She got angry, said she needed money for basic living expenses and couldn't survive on her yoga pay alone. I reminded her what the prenup said. During separation, we were each responsible for ourselves. If she needed more income, she could pick up extra hours, do more freelance design, or figure out another plan. A bunch of you had warned me she might play the "I can't support myself" card to push for spousal support. So I was ready for that conversation. Turned out to be solid advice. Then Monday morning, my phone rang. It was Jenna. First time I'd heard from her since everything blew up. She said Sarah was struggling, and maybe I was being too harsh. Told me Sarah had made a mistake, but it didn't mean her whole life had to get blown apart. I asked Jenna flat out, did she think I deserved to have my life blown apart because of Sarah's mistake? Did she think I should have just kept paying for everything while Sarah tested the waters, waiting around to see if she wanted to trade me in? Jenna went quiet at that, then admitted she hadn't realized I'd overheard their whole little scheme, and maybe she'd given Sarah bad advice. I told her Sarah was a grown woman who made her own choices. If she was struggling now, she'd have to figure it out. I wasn't her backup plan or her safety net anymore. Jenna tried to argue that Sarah hadn't actually done anything yet, that thinking about it wasn't the same as doing it. I told her planning something and following through aren't that far apart. If I hadn't caught wind of it, Sarah would have gone all the way. End of story. That conversation ended pretty quickly after that. So, Reddit, thanks to your advice, I'm staying the course. No reconciliation, no counseling, no let's fix this together. I'm moving forward with the divorce, and Sarah can handle her own future. Some of you asked if I felt guilty about the timing, serving her divorce papers right when she was trying to come back. Honestly, no. She didn't come back because she realized she loved me. She came back because whatever fling she was hoping for didn't materialize, and I was the safe, convenient option. That's not love, that's settling. The next update will probably be after I hear from my lawyer about timelines and next steps. Thanks for keeping me grounded, Reddit. Having outside voices has been a reality check I didn't know I needed. Update 2. Reddit, you chaotic geniuses, you called it again. Remember how some of you predicted Sarah would crank things up once the soft approach didn't work? Well, buckle up. Monday started out fairly normal, if you can call anything in this mess normal. I was catching up on work I'd fallen behind on while dealing with the drama when my HR department called. Apparently, someone had contacted them claiming I was in the middle of a nasty divorce and might be emotionally unstable at work. Now, my clients are warehouse managers and operations folks who don't care about my personal life as long as their conveyor belts keep moving. But HR has to take complaints seriously. So I got dragged into an awkward meeting where they asked about my emotional well-being and whether I needed time off or counseling. I kept it professional, explained briefly that yes, I was divorcing, but everything was handled through lawyers and it wasn't affecting my performance. My manager even backed me up, pointing out that my numbers were actually higher than usual. Overtime pays, apparently. Still, sitting there having to defend my emotional state was humiliating. Didn't take me more than 30 seconds to figure out who made that call. Then Tuesday, Sarah texted me asking if we could meet to discuss logistics. Against my better judgment, and probably against every single piece of Reddit's advice, I agreed. I figured we needed to handle some practical things anyway. Big mistake. Sarah showed up looking like she'd been running on nothing but energy drinks and pure stress. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the truth. She came in soft, apologizing right away. Said she was sorry about the HR stunt, but she was desperate and didn't know any other way to grab my attention. I told her flat out that dragging my workplace into it was way out of line, and then asked what logistics were so urgent that lawyers couldn't handle them. That's when she dropped the bomb. She said she was pregnant. Now, let me cut straight to it. After about 10 minutes of panic and trying to do the math in my head, I realized the numbers didn't add up. We hadn't been together since before she moved out, which was only about 3 weeks ago. Way too soon for her to know, way too early for her to have any symptoms. Just too soon, period. If anything, it would have had to be from a lot earlier, but she sure hadn't shown any signs of it when I last saw her. When I pointed this out, she got defensive, claimed she'd been feeling off for a while, but didn't want to stress me out while I was buried in overtime at work. Said she took a test that morning and it came up positive. I asked if she wanted to go to a doctor together and actually confirm it, since this was supposed to be life-changing news. She told me she wasn't ready for that yet, that she needed more time to process, but she felt I needed to know because this changed everything. According to her, we owed it to our child to try and work things out. I told her medical proof had to come first before any big decisions were made. And if she really was pregnant, then we'd sort out co-parenting arrangements through the lawyers. Her face felt like she'd been expecting me to immediately drop the divorce and come running back. Then Wednesday rolled around, and I got a call from an unknown number. Turned out it was the yoga guy, the same guy Sarah had admitted she'd been thinking about exploring things with. He told me he hadn't known she was married when she started flirting, and that he backed off completely once he found out. Apparently, Sarah told him we were already separated and headed for divorce, but someone else clued him in that we were still legally married while she was chasing him. He said he felt bad and just wanted to clear the air. I thanked him, told him he hadn't done anything wrong. Sarah had lied, and he did the right thing by walking away when he found out the truth. But it confirmed something I'd already suspected, Sarah's timeline. She'd been planting seeds with this guy for weeks, maybe even months. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment breakdown in our marriage. Thursday, Sarah texted me asking if I'd thought more about the pregnancy and what it meant for us. I replied that I was open to discussing co-parenting once she had medical confirmation. She called immediately, furious that I was being cold about our so-called child. I told her I wasn't cold. I was being realistic. If she was actually pregnant, we'd deal with it responsibly. But I wasn't going to make life-changing decisions based on a store-bought test and a couple of vague feelings. She hung up on me. Then came Friday, and that one was a doozy. I got home from work and found Sarah's car in my driveway. She was sitting on my porch steps like she'd been camped out for a while. She said she needed to tell me the truth, that she couldn't keep up the lies anymore. So, I sat down and let her talk. Turns out the pregnancy was completely fake. She admitted she'd hoped it would scare me into reconsidering the divorce, but realized once I asked for medical proof, the whole charade would fall apart. As for Yoga Guy, yeah, that was real. And a lot deeper than she first admitted. They'd been texting for months, grabbing coffee here and there, and she was gearing up to sleep with him during her little trial separation. Jenna, her best friend, had apparently been cheering her on, kept telling Sarah she deserved to see what else was out there before tying herself down for good. But when Sarah actually tried to take things further, Yoga Guy pulled the plug because he'd learned she was still married. That's when Sarah realized her grand little plan wasn't working out the way she pictured it. She told me that seeing the divorce papers had been a wake-up call, that she was about to lose the best thing in her life over some fantasy. Said she'd been watching too many movies and listening to too much bad advice from Jenna. Then she asked if there was any way I could forgive her, if we could wipe the slate clean and start fresh. I'll admit, seeing her that broken down wasn't easy. This wasn't the confident woman who once said she needed space to explore her options. This was someone realizing they'd torched their own life for nothing. But you know what? A lot of you had warned me this exact thing would happen. That sooner or later, she'd come crawling back with tears and apologies once reality set in. That I shouldn't let guilt make me forget the bigger issue. She'd been willing to betray me, and thought I'd just sit on the bench as her backup plan. I told her I appreciated her honesty, but it didn't change a damn thing. These weren't spur-of-the-moment mistakes. They were choices she made over months of planning. The only reason she came clean now was because her plan blew up in her face, and she had to deal with the fallout. She asked me what she was supposed to do now, where she was supposed to go, how she was supposed to rebuild. I told her those were questions she should have asked herself before she decided to blow up our life together. She left around 9 that night. Haven't heard from her since. But Saturday morning, Jenna called me. She said Sarah had been staying with her and was in a really bad place. Jenna wanted to know if I was happy with myself for destroying Sarah's life, or if I might show her some mercy. I told Jenna plain and simple, Sarah wrecked her own life. I just refused to go down with the ship. If Jenna really cared about Sarah, she'd help her move forward instead of trying to guilt me into fixing her mess. Jenna said I was being heartless. I said I was being practical. That ended the conversation pretty quick. So here I am, Reddit. Divorce is moving forward. No more fake pregnancies. No more workplace harassment. And apparently, I'm the villain now for refusing to play backup husband. Your advice about staying firm and not falling for her mind games has been dead on. It's been hard not to feel guilty, especially seeing Sarah look genuinely upset. But you all were right. She's not upset because she hurt me. She's upset because she's dealing with the fallout of her own choices. Thanks for keeping my head straight through this mess, Reddit. Update 3. Remember how I said things seemed to be calming down? Yeah, turns out that was me being a little too hopeful. You all warned me Sarah wouldn't just fade quietly into the background, and once again, you nailed it. This past week has been a perfect example of just how creative a person can get when they feel cornered. It kicked off on Monday when my lawyer called. Sarah had filed a motion accusing me of hiding money and asking for temporary spousal support until the divorce was final. In her paperwork, she claimed I'd moved big amounts out of our joint accounts and left her broke. My lawyer wasn't rattled. Our prenup covers this exact situation, and I've got paperwork proving the money came from extra hours I worked. Still, it meant more legal bills and more delays, which I'm starting to believe was the whole point. Then Tuesday rolled around. I got a call from my mortgage company asking about my plans for the house. Apparently, someone had reached out claiming to represent both of us in the divorce, asking about ways for one spouse to take over the mortgage. That someone sure wasn't my lawyer. Turns out Sarah had called them herself, even introducing herself as Mrs. Walker. Funny, since she never actually took my last name. She gave them our case number, which she shouldn't even have, and tried to fish for refinancing info. The mortgage company wouldn't tell her anything without my authorization, but they checked in with me to confirm if this was legitimate. I had to explain that no, my wife was not authorized to poke around like that. And yes, she was probably digging to see if she could make a claim on the house despite the prenup. Wednesday things went from shady to straight up bizarre. I got home from work and my neighbor was waiting for me outside. She's a retired teacher in her 70s, always pleasant, though we mostly just chat about the yard or the weather. She told me a young woman had knocked on her door earlier that day asking questions about me, whether she'd ever heard loud fights, seen other women coming and going, or thought I seemed controlling. The woman had introduced herself as a social worker checking into a domestic matter. The neighbor thought it was odd since she'd never noticed any drama from my side. She asked for ID and a business card, and the social worker got cagey before taking off. Her description of the woman sounded exactly like Jenna. I thanked my neighbor for letting me know and immediately called my lawyer. He said this could count as harassment, and while we could file a complaint, it might be smarter to document everything and use it later if Sarah tried to argue I was being unfair. By Thursday, I'd had enough and decided to confront things head on. I called Jenna. At first, she played dumb, acting like she didn't know what I was talking about. When I brought up the neighbor's story, Jenna got defensive, saying she was just trying to help her friend. I told her impersonating a social worker could be illegal, and that pestering my job, my mortgage company, and my neighbors counted as harassment. If she really wanted to help Sarah, I said, she should encourage her to move forward instead of trying to sabotage the divorce. Jenna accused me of being paranoid and insisted she hadn't done anything wrong, that Sarah was just struggling and trying to figure out her legal options. I reminded her Sarah already had a lawyer for that, and that snooping around asking neighbors about domestic violence wasn't a legal tactic, it was desperation. She hung up on me. Friday night was the grand finale. I was working late for real this time, emergency on the packaging line at a food plant, and didn't get home until about 10 p.m. Pulled into my driveway and noticed my front door was cracked open. I've watched enough crime shows to know you don't just walk in when something looks off. So I stayed in my truck and called the cops. They came, checked the place, found no signs of forced entry, and nothing seemed missing. But I noticed something on the kitchen counter, Sarah's set of house keys. Looked like she'd let herself in, snooped around, and left the keys behind. No note, no explanation, just the keys. The officers asked if I wanted to file a report. I said no, not this time, but asked them to document that she'd entered without permission and returned her keys. One of the officers asked if this was divorce-related, and I gave her the short version. She said they see this kind of thing more often than people realize, that divorce can drag out behavior nobody expected, even from people you thought you knew. She recommended changing my locks and putting up a camera system, just in case things escalated. So Saturday morning, I swapped out the locks. Spent the afternoon setting up a simple doorbell camera to keep track of who comes and goes. Come Monday, my lawyer called with a mixed bag. The good news, the judge denied Sarah's request for spousal support. Our prenup held up exactly like it was supposed to, and the court didn't buy her claims about me hiding money. The bad news, her lawyer filed for an extension, saying they needed more time to comb through my financial records, which means more delays and more legal fees, but probably not enough to change the ultimate outcome. My lawyer said this was pretty normal for contentious divorces, that Sarah was probably buying time hoping I'd get tired of the legal fees and agree to some kind of settlement. He asked if I wanted to explore mediation or if I preferred to see it through to the end. Reddit, this is where your advice has been invaluable. A few months ago, I might have considered mediation just to get it over with. But you guys have consistently pointed out that giving in to manipulation just encourages more manipulation. I told my lawyer to see it through to the end. So that's where we stand. Sarah has apparently moved on from fake pregnancies and workplace harassment to amateur detective work and breaking and entering. Jenna is cosplaying as a social worker. And I'm learning that divorce brings out creativity in people that you never knew existed. Thanks for keeping me grounded through all this, Reddit. Your advice to expect escalation and not take it personally has been more helpful than you know. Without this community reality checking my reactions, I might have talked myself into feeling guilty about Sarah's breakdown or Jenna's harassment campaign.